do we? We don't. And we want to make the most of every moment that we are here to exchange our bit of sharings and, of course, to find those connects for which we are here. Because this summit, besides all the other objects, the basic thing is to find that connect which can help us foster the much needed advancement in the economic sector here in Nepal. So a very good afternoon. Namaste to all our delegates and all the distinguished personalities who are and will be a part of this very, very important engagement. I am Shivani Thapa Bosnat, news editor with Nepal Television, and trust me, very, very privileged to be a part of this event and to be a part of this very important panel. Esteemed guests, speakers, and all those gathered here, it's indeed an honor, and we have a remarkable panel which will be chaired by our Honorable Education Minister, a very, very promising personality, who will be sharing their valuable insights and strategies to propel Nepal's entrepreneurial ecosystems to new heights, ladies and gentlemen. So without further ado, allow me to invite our distinguished personalities up on stage. To begin with, please join me in inviting to chair the session our Honorable Minister for Education, Science and Technology, Ms. Sumana Shrestha. Yeah, I request the Honorable Minister to grace the session as the chair. Yeah, the center stage is for you, ma'am. Pleased and privileged to be inviting up on stage Ms. Juna Mathema, Chairperson, Startup and Innovation Forum, Federation of Nepali Chambers of Commerce and Industry, who will be the session moderator. Allow me to give you a brief introduction, beginning with the session chair, ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Sumana Shrestha. I'm sure she's not a new name to anyone here. She serves as the Minister of Education, Science and Technology, and with BA in Economics and Mathematics from Brian Moore College and a Master's Business Administration from MIT Sloan School of Management, she brings in a wealth of knowledge into her roles. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister, for gracing us today. Our moderator is the chairperson of the Startup and Innovation Forum at FNCCI, which is the umbrella organization of the private sector, ladies and gentlemen. She is an entrepreneur and researcher and co-founded Blitz and Seva Securities, among other ventures. She champions entrepreneurship in Nepal, leading impactful programs and holding key positions at FNCCI, and is the chairperson of Startup and Innovation Forum there. She holds a master's degree in both business administration and sociology. A warm welcome to the session moderator. My pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to invite the distinguished panelists up on stage now, beginning with Mr. Lokman Hussain Mia, all the way from Bangladesh. He is the Executive Chairman, Bangladesh Investment Development Authority, and he has served in various roles, including Secretary of the Health Services Division during the pandemic, where he successfully reduced mortality rates and organized a successful immunization program in Bangladesh. It's a pleasure to have you in the panel, sir. My pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to have this opportunity to invite Mr. Umesh Gupta, the Executive Director at Industrial Enterprise Development Institute, with 21 plus years of experience in management, financial management, and leadership. He holds a master's degree in business administration and sociology, complemented by a background in engineering. His extensive career spans engagements with UN agencies, multinational companies, and international organizations, where he excelled in policy planning, project management, and budgetary oversight. It's a matter of great pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to have with us Mr. Siddhanta Raj Pandey, and it's with much pleasure and privilege I invite him to grace us on stage, the Chief Executive Officer of Business Oxygen. With 30 plus years in banking, Mr. Pandey has worked as the CEO of Ace Development Bank and now manages Business Oxygen, a climate-focused PE fund in Nepal. He chairs NPEA and NABIC, serves at the boards at Standard Chartered Bank, and holds roles in CREF, Industry Promotion Board, and Nepal's Credit Information Bureau. His education includes a BA from Virginia Tech, MSc from the University of Bristol, and executive course in global finance and climate change. Our other member of the esteemed panel is Mr. Tenzin Sonam Gonsar, Chief Executive Officer, Team Ventures. He's the founder and CEO of Team Ventures, a Nepal-based investment firm. He holds a master's from Columbia University with a diverse background in business and board positions in renewable energy, technology, agriculture, and electric vehicles. He actively supports education and youth development initiatives in Nepal. My pleasure now to be inviting on stage Mr. James Norton, Head Development Finance and Investment, DAI UK. Mr. James Norton, as the Head of Development Finance and Investment at DAI UK, leads a specialized team focusing on mobilizing private capital for sustainable development goals, particularly in climate financing. With over 15 years of global experience, including deep Nepali exposure, he specializes in impact investment, climate finance, and early stage ventures, developing green finance solutions for global clients. And last but not the least, Mr. Pravesh Rizal, Head Quantitative Strategies, Cross River Bank. He's a Nepali-born banker with a career spanning continents and over a decade on Wall Street. He has held key roles at leading global banks, including Senior Vice President of Citigroup, and currently heads the Quantitative Strategies Group at Cross River Bank, a major player in private consumer credit. He is also committed to promoting Nepal's potential in the global financial arena and has been involved in pro bono initiatives, offering his expertise in frontier markets. Trust us, we are honored to have tailored this very, very esteemed panel of achievers and then who represent diverse thoughts and experience forums. Now, Nepal, as you know, has long been recognized for its cultural and natural heritages, and then the resilience of the people, of course. And now, more than ever, ladies and gentlemen, the country is poised to become a hub of innovation, entrepreneurship, and business opportunities. You'll know more if you wish to look around. And on the panel, we have assembled some of the brightest minds and most influential leaders who are dedicated to fostering a conducive environment for startups and businesses to thrive in Nepal. Said that, it's my pleasure to invite now up on stage to set the tone for the deliberations later on, the presenter for the session, Mr. Abhushan Jyoti Kansakar, who is the executive member of Nepalese Young Entrepreneurs Forum and is known for launching GV, I'm sure most of us know that, a leading e-commerce platform in Nepal that transformed accessibility and digitalized the economy. His impact spans across lifestyle products, heavy equipment, IT, and fashion, driving innovation and growth in various sectors while enriching Nepal's entrepreneurial landscape. We are very, very much looking forward to this presentation. With much pleasure, may we have Mr. Kansakar up on stage now.
Thank you, Shivani-ji. Good afternoon to everybody. I have 10 minutes, so I'll try to remove all the formalities out of this and I'll move ahead with my presentation. So, if we look at Nepalese economy by 2035, with a growth rate of 6%, we see the Nepalese economy to be a 71.64 billion economy. So why don't we say, can it be with a 6%, with a 10%, maybe we can see $100 billion economy. So why don't we say a word, why don't you take a number like 100? It sounds good. But I've chosen 125 particularly because it's actually possible. And it's probably this generation that it's possible will not be able to grow at 12.5% because no economy has, unless there has been some opportunity that has been provided at a particular time, and that time is now. How is the 125 billion possible, you ask? We've been talking about a particular industry. The start of this particular innovation happens, if you've taken India or you've taken the US, it started with innovation, technology in some form. In Nepal, there is a small but significant industry, a $500 million industry, which is close to about 1.25% of our GDP, but contributes somewhere close to about 3% of our foreign exchange, which is the IT services industry. If you look at this particular industry, the need for infrastructure is very few. We have the talent available. To give a perspective of how this industry can be a $25 billion instead of a $5 billion that everybody's been claiming. A $25 billion is basically what, say, an organization in India, TCS, is worth $27 billion in revenue. In Nepal, the entire country has to create only one company called TCS, which is basically multiple companies into one, 25 billion. Their engineer strength is somewhere close to about 4.5 lakh. I think even today, it's not something in 10 years we'll not be able to build if we have the right mindset, and we have Honorable Minister of Education. If with the right mindset, if we can build 4.5 to 5 lakh engineers, this is actually possible. So with a $25 billion boost in the economy, which is a pure foreign exchange that comes into the country, that boosts another $25 billion in internal GDP. Through other industries, other startups are going to boom. This kind of industry actually leads to a lot of talent being built for innovation. So moving further, so if we look at growth of any organization or any nation, there are multiple drivers in this growth. So I'll take the innovation growth flywheel only for now, since we'll not be talking about other industries. So if we look at this particular flywheel of growth, the first input is talent. We have a considerable 30 million population and a considerable talent already in this country. The second input in the flywheel is innovation. Innovation comes from startup entrepreneurship. It comes beyond startup and entrepreneurship as well, but focusing on startups, a lot of innovation can actually happen. So every input that is given to this flywheel increases the growth of this flywheel. So which means the economy is going to grow. If we have more talent, there's going to be more innovation, more startups, more entrepreneurship, etc. When there's more innovation and the government can put in favorable regulations, favorable policies in place, the growth flywheel moves even faster, right? It is also said that when there is innovation, government by itself is going to do it. But if government puts in extra effort to put the flywheel faster, we have favorable policies in place, moves faster. Favorable policies for investments, favorable policies for innovation, and then that leads to the fourth flywheel, that is investments. This leads to more investments, and that leads to faster growth. There is while this happens, if we actually see when there is a higher amount of growth, the per capita income grows. If the per capita income grows, quality of life improves, talent is retained. That's the general how the growth flywheel will operate. If you look at the talent, flywheel, we have a 30 million population. I know 30 million are not there in this country at this moment, but we have, this is a census 30 million population. By 2035, this is going to be 33 million, which is, yes, looking at the two neighbors, it's not a sizable population, but it's still a very sizable population if you consider the globe, right? The literacy rate sits at about 76%. If we grow at the same pace that we're growing, we should be about 80%. I know literacy is a very base marker, but it still shows that 80% of the population is going to be literate, which means we could have a bigger size of the population. There could be engineers, which could be obviously doctors and various other areas like scientists or anything that leads to more innovation. In terms of innovation, so how have we seen startups grow in Nepal? So if you look at the early stage startups in 2010, 2015, these were the IT services companies like Funsoft. They developed around 2010, 2015. Some of them a few years early, but a general timeline. 2016 to 2018, we had the early stage startups come up, right? So these are the Esewa, Kalti, and a couple of, Daraz, or we have Sasto Deal. They did come up around 2020, 2015, also some of them, but, general timelines around this period. By 2019, 2021, we see diversification in terms of the startup. We have edtechs coming up, we have food techs developing around the same period, right? We have agri-tech, a lot of agri-tech around 2019, 2021. And 2022 to 2023, we've already started seeing policies from the government. The e-commerce bill have been tabled in the upper house. Even in the lower house, it's stuck because of a certain problem, but we also have the IT bill in the draft phase. From the investment perspective, we have seen 2023 as one of the largest private sector investments that have come into the country. So we're seeing some journey going in this way. So a small example, everybody talks about the India story, and it's a great story. We've got India as a great story, especially in digital payments. So I was just looking at some numbers, and we saw that as per the data, after deducing the data, India's average transaction per person annually is about 94 rupees digitally, right? Registered use is about 21% of the population. Now, we're looking at the data in Nepal, and it showed a contrast. We had a 227 rupees average digital transaction, right? And 60%, and this is only one player. This is just phone pay data on the Nepalese side. If you actually look at that, and in India, if you make that 60% of the population, it's somewhere close to about 250, 260 rupees per average per person. So actually, if you see, it's the number of digital payment users, registered users in Nepal is much higher. So we have one success story here, and this is the basis of any startup, is the payments that will start coming in. We already have the right environment for it now. Moving forward, in terms of the key matrix, in terms of regulation, yes, this is probably the this is the biggest bottleneck that we have at this point, but there have been some improvements there. Some key matrix which the government in the past have, through regulation, has helped is internet penetration, which sits at about 51%. We have to give it to the government as well as the telecom companies who've done this. Digital payment penetration, again, the central bank has pushed for digital payments, which has helped the digital payments grow by about 11% annually. Startup policy and loan, this through ordinance was passed yesterday. The startup loan process have already started a couple of months ago. This has already happened. This is things that are happening in 2023, 2024. The IT bill is in the draft phase. It's not been tabled yet, but yes, the e-commerce bill has been drafted. It's been passed by the upper house. It's supposed to be tabled at the lower house. So things like this is happening on the regulation side. And there's a lot more that the government is hoping, but I think it needs to speed up. If that happens, that input matrix will lead to faster growth. In terms of the investments, I'm looking at some data. This is a 2012 to 2022 data versus 2023 data. This is, if you actually look at this data, so 10 years, we had 11 active funds versus 16 active funds in 2023. Total investments in 2023 alone was 22 versus 74 in 10 years. And the amount invested was $66 million in 10 years versus $35 million in just 1 year. I'll skip a few data. These are some of the key actors in the Nepal investment ecosystem. I'm sure I don't have that kind of time, so I'll be skipping this. I hope everybody is, it's also available on the NPA website. Quality of life, like mentioned, quality of life leads to faster growth, but it also leads to growth in health. It leads to growth in the housing, technology, infrastructure, everything. So that's how quality of life leads to faster growth. So now going into key challenges. Now this is, I think, the main area. If we look at the red side of the key challenges, regulatory complexities and enabling environment. This is something that the government can immediately do. There will be a lot more inputs required in the flywheel, but yes, that's two areas that government needs to put. That will lead to more investments coming in, access to finance will improve. Infrastructure challenges will always be there. This is a very long-term goal. It cannot be tackled in a day, but yes, slow and steady investments in infrastructure will definitely help. So what's in for new investors? So what we are asking out of this particular event or say summit is the government needs to put in more inputs. There is growth that can happen through innovation. The innovation-led growth around the world has always been faster than an infrastructure-led growth. So while all of the budget is being pushed into infrastructure, not necessarily budget, a lot of effort into the right regulation to push innovation would definitely help. And investors are seeing there is a lot of innovation already happening in Nepal. With that, there has been investments that are coming in, and also we are seeing some good inputs from the government in terms of regulation, which means the environment's getting better, the flywheel's moving faster. We would want it to move faster. I think more investments will definitely lead to it. So I'll share the stage with the rest of the panelists now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for setting the ambience just right and for the really good food that you give for the further deliberations. Ladies and gentlemen, we now will be part of a 60 minutes deliberation. I know that's quite a limit, but that's something we need to work on, which will culminate in the statements of the Honorable Minister. And in the interest of time, and as we also very much want your participation as well with a consultation of the moderator, we seek to request you all, if you have any queries, comments, or something to add to the deliberations, we request you to send us a written note identifying yourself, your organization, and the person you want to ask the question. So me and the volunteers spread across the room can collect your comments and hand it over to the session moderator. Said that, allow me now to hand over the floor to the session moderator. I'll be there seated, assisting you with the timekeeping. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shivani ma'am. And this has been a fabulous day. Yesterday too was a different kind, but today a warm welcome to all the audience, our distinguished panelists, and our Honorable Minister of Education. Welcoming you to all of you to this panel. We do have a number of questions already set, and as Shivani ma'am just mentioned about, if you have any question, the background. If you have any questions, you can just direct it to me or all the volunteers, and I will try to incorporate that in the questions that I'm asking them already. So I'd like to begin with Lokman sir about, he's got extensive experience and as an executive chairman of Bangladesh Investment Authority, BIDA, you played a crucial role in promoting investment and facilitating business growth. So could you please share about the startup ecosystem in Bangladesh and the driving force behind its successful startup movement, because we've seen a lot of Bangladesh company already in Nepal doing really good. So if you can share some light on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you for invitation of this prestigious summit. Bangladesh is one of the developing country. Right now we are the 5th resilience country in the world under the visionary leadership of Honorable Prime Minister. That is happening last 61 years. By this time government set some policy, regulation policy, and that is very, very practical in our country also. We can say right now if we in Bangladesh we have a 1,200 active startup, about new 200 startup every year. We have 157 unique startup attack near about $960 US. That is 92% for the global funding also. Over than 60% of this funding is gone to the fintechs and other growing the sector, or logistics and mobility and e-commerce and healthcare, etc. also. So far, 70% of the funding is from the venture capital and provided by the corporate and angel funding. Actually, Bangladesh successfully startup movement began in the digital revolution. Moreover, precisely, it is the result of the dynamic decision, a digital smart Bangladesh, also the Vijay, because that is the main that is the main concept of the Honorable Prime Minister, dedication of the investment and promotion. That in 2025, we have a target, the 5 in Yukon, and by 2014, we have target in 50 also. Under the government policies last 15 years, our average growth rate 6.1% annual growth rate GDP also. We have a massive local market, 170 million people, mid-age near about 28 years, and 67% of the people are below 35 years. We have a very young and tech-hungry population that drive our consumption. In 2030, we will be the middle affluent class near about 34 million people, and among this population, we will be the 9th largest consuming market in the world. We have ensured 100% electricity all over the country with 130 million internet subscribers. That countrywide we all possess to the digital innovation also. Our success and growing ecosystem is made up the government, initiative, investor, accelerator, development partner, universities, academy also. Government of Bangladesh focus on supporting innovation, attraction of the funding, and creating the enabler. We have a high-tech park authority, high-tech park, software technology, and IT training and incubator center across the Bangladesh. They have already facilitated very attractive incentive, including tax break until 2024. It is extended up to next 10 years. Okay. IT product and services get series of fiscal and non-fiscal incentive also. Government also sponsor venture capital fund that is called Smart Bangladesh Limited to offer training, mentorship, and also financial assistance also. We also have innovation design that is called IDEA project also. We are developing a startup national policy to streamline the business and the investor process also. With the favorable condition, Bangladesh startup have the potential to raise up to $2.5 million year of the 2030. We have a very general and journey to complete the transformation to innovation ecosystem. We have a very liberal approach. Your investment is 100% secured by law. Your 100% dividends you can transfer without government permission, and tax exemption, and up to 15 years also. Service, export get 10% tax exemption and 4% of the earning provided as cash incentive also. Full reputation of profit and allow without permission. Retain earning of the treated as a new investment. Streamlined process for visa and work permit is very easy. Foreign ownership companies has also secured the work, capital, long-term financing from the. There is some success history in our country.
Lokman sir, maybe we can come back to it again. And I like to go to Umesh sir next, because it's kind of relating to so much to learn from Bangladesh ecosystem, and so much is happening there. I think the conversation will continue from here onwards also. Because like you're saying, you're already having 1,200 startups in your country and 200 plus every year. Even government of Nepal, Ministry of Industry is aiming to have 10,000 startups by 2030. So here I'd like to ask Umesh, who is the Executive Director of Industrial Enterprise Development Institute, which is actually almost 40 years old, which has been providing support to SMEs and other businesses and industries, and now it has taken up the responsibility to support the startup as well. So the recent program undertaken by IEDI is distributing the startup enterprise loan, which has been on the deadlock for last I don't know how many years, but now it is under process, and under the leadership of Umesh sir, I think it will see its day before the fiscal year ends. And so I'd like to ask, what are some of the major challenges and barriers faced by the startups, and what would be their possible solutions as you see it, sir? Over to you.
Thank you, Junaji. Good afternoon. Namaste, everyone. It is a great pleasure to be here. So I'll start with the good things first. So yesterday we had good news that industrial enterprise policy has been revised, and we have a startup policy in it, and also business incubation center has been talked inside the industrial enterprise policy. So having said that, this has created a foundation for the country to moving forward with the startups and do a lot of things in the startup. Also, government is planning from the next fiscal year to establish business incubation center in all the provinces, which will open up an opportunity outside Kathmandu to work on this. Coming to the IDI, so IDI was, yes, it was established 40 years back as a small business promotion program, but IDI was actually established 27 years back, and it has been working on the enterprise development, mentoring, coaching, and now we are working on the startups business incubation center as well. So when we opened up the application for the startup enterprise loan, it was great motivation from the applicants. We received more than 1,600 applications in 21 days time, and right now we have shortlisted and it has come to 394, and we are processing it and we are moving forward. And as she said, after 3 weeks of time we will have actual number who will be getting this support through the startups. And definitely while working on this, we faced a little bit of a problem as well. As you all know, we don't have adequate IT infrastructure, so we are not able to do the applications online, so everyone has to come to our office and fill the application. Another problem we faced is we don't have a structure either at the provinces level or at the local levels. So people from the remote areas has to travel to Kathmandu, come to our office to submit the application. Also, we can talk about the trained human resource. We don't have very much trained human resource to work on startup. Startup is definitely a new terminology for a country like Nepal, but we are working on it. We are Googling it, searching on the Google. We are learning it. We are learning on the online platforms and working on it. We are trying our best to do it. Also, looking at the government of Nepal, from the government of Nepal perspective, this is a top priority from the government of Nepal, and government of Nepal is trying to facilitate all the activities for the startup to generate more businesses, to create more employment. And I think we will be talking about the Startup Nation 2013 next round. So for now, I'll stop here.
Thank you so much, sir. Yes, definitely the startup loan has seen its day, and the kind of traction that I've seen was also very encouraging. The lines that was there in the last day, even before that day, was very encouraging. And of course the vibe of startup, like Umesh said, it's very, the word itself is very new. Unlike what Lokman sir said about the incubation center and all the support system that you have in place in Bangladesh, we are in the process of having all of that actually, and we need the learnings from there. Coming to Siddhant sir now, about with your expertise, extensive expertise in both international finance and local entrepreneurship, what specific initiatives or strategies do you believe are crucial for fostering a more conducive environment for startups in Nepal, and particularly in terms of access to finance and regulatory support that you see?
Thank you, Junaji. Honorable Minister, fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen. To meet unmet demand is the very premise of startups. And it's been just about a decade that we in Nepal have actually seriously started looking at startups. Now that has morphed into more serious playing field with the advent of alternative investments like private equity, venture capital coming into the country about 10 years ago, and local family offices implementing venture capital and private equity into startups. It has enabled an alternative investment that was now focused towards the missing middle. The ones who were not able to get bank loans because of lack of collateral or security now have an avenue to seek private equity venture capital to enable their growth. And that is what has happened, and that is what is actually fueling the startup industry in Nepal, which is quite vibrant. You know, the entire thing about startup industry is that it needs to come into fruition, and one of the main missing areas was capital, and that capital has now come into play. But the other side of it is an enabling environment. Because of this, because of the local players, Nepal has been able to imitate international best practices from successful startups abroad and replicate their model into the local scenario. And that has not only pushed the government into enabling rules, regulations, whereas in the past, innovation used to follow regulation, but now regulation is now learning from innovation to make that pivot into creating an enabling environment. So we see this until yesterday, we did not have a startup policy. Now the ordinance will enable that to happen in the next couple of months. And we will see that our startup diaspora will be able to now jump from the MSME envelope to its own regulatory regime, which was much needed. And what startups really need from the government is basically an enabling environment in terms of creating a platform for bringing mentors, bringing universities, bringing academia and the industries to help these young companies to come into fruition, to help them. For private equity players like myself, we are always looking out for a deal flow, a pipeline of projects for us to invest in the future. And we see that, you know, this growing startup industry in Nepal is going to be able to enable us to invest more. There have been quite a few investments already that have also attracted international and regional players in the market, that has fostered further competition. And this is what economies, frontier economies like ours need. We need innovation, we need that drive, we need our people to create employment, we need innovation so that our young people don't go abroad. We have companies here who are already fostering training on artificial intelligence and exporting that white collar abroad. We need many more of that to happen. We have informal hundreds of companies that are already working on robotics, as well as what do they call it? Well, robotics and things that are aligned to robotics. So we've got these companies that we need our enabling environment, especially from the government, to look at it not only from the tax perspective, because startups don't really pay taxes, you know, they're hardly ever in profit, but in terms of providing them mentorship as well as connections for their future.
Thank you, Siddhant sir. And here I see the potential of not just investing in startups, but the potential is investing in the startup ecosystem itself, you know, the incubation centers or the structured mentoring that happens around the globe. So we do see the potential in that as well. From here, I would like to go to Tenzing sir. And as an experienced investor yourself, what advice would you like to give Nepali startups seeking alternative funding sources to accelerate their startup growth and sustainability is the question to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Junaji. So I think I'll answer that in broadly two categories in terms of, if I may, some advice for Nepalese startups. So I think it depends at what stage you are. So for aspiring early stage entrepreneurs, I would say to primarily to focus on fundamentals. Basically the kind of things that you learn in business school, right? So before starting out on a business venture, you look for market feasibility, you work on your fundamentals, you work on building a team and so on, proof of concept, right? So I think that's very important. For the early stage kind of aspiring entrepreneurs, I would say to focus on the fundamentals. Another advice I would have for early stage aspiring entrepreneurs is typically, we were speaking before this panel, if you look at the investment kind of ecosystem in Nepal, we do have a lot of investors now compared to 10 years ago. If you look at recent statistics, CBON has introduced what's called the Specialized Investment Fund. And the last statistic I read a couple of weeks ago, I believe funds worth over 3,000 crores have been approved. And we expect that to be materialized in the coming weeks and months. So eventually kind of capital is flowing in. We have international funds, we have funds like BO2, SITS fund, we have the local funds like ours. So the investment ecosystem is gradually maturing up, it's improving. Look, as Sid said, this whole kind of startup ecosystem, I would say, is roughly just over 10 years. So in many ways, we're just a baby, and I think we've come a long way. I was attending one of the sessions yesterday, and I learned that the Investment Board of Nepal, I think it's around just for over 10 years. And I think our colleague here from Bangladesh can confirm that your investment board has existed for a couple of decades now, right? And just to put things in perspective, because often when you come to platforms like this, we expect a lot, and I think it's good to have expectations, but it needs to be contextualized in terms of where we are in many of these things, right? So coming back, so early stage kind of aspiring entrepreneurs, I would say focus on fundamentals. In terms of the funding side, I would say primarily you'd have to rely on crowdfunding, friends and family, because normally early stage financing, seed capital, angel investing, as you call it, is almost non-existent in Nepal. This is very important. We always speak. We need seed financing and angel investing in Nepal. It's not really there officially as of now, so these are things that we need to work on as investors. People like Sid and us, we're generally a little more focused on growth capital. Having said that, now for more kind of mature startups or companies that have done business for say 2-3 years, they have a proof of concept, the management team have some experience, I think then you take your business plan to the next level, right? Generally speaking, if it's not a Nepalese investor view per se, if there's no scalability, then investors are not interested, right? Because we manage money for people. Personally, as a fund manager, it's for the most part, it's not our own money. We're either managing people's money or institutional money. So the accountability is very high. Typically, as a fund, we're managing it for 8 years, 10 years, or typically maximum 12 years. So the bar is high for us, the pressure is high, we have to hit IRR targets. So things like exit plan, scalability is very important. So I would say for more kind of mature, growth-oriented entrepreneurs, I think these are things to keep in mind. In terms of financing, I would say you're in very good shape actually. You know, we're just kind of 10 years into the Nepalese startup ecosystem. There are amazing startups, amazing entrepreneurs. There's a lot of funds actually. You know, I don't think the number of funds is the shortage. As an investor, what I'd like to see in the next 5 years is we have specialized funds, right? So our position as a fund is we take a diversified position for obvious reasons, because you know the startup ecosystem is relatively new for risk management. But in the future, we'd like to see tech funds, agro-based funds, manufacturing-based funds. So those are kind of things that we'd like to see in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you for such nice feedback on, a round of applause, please. We've missed that for our previous speakers, but yes, definitely a step that the entrepreneurs can follow, the startups can follow for being investment ready and be a potential investing, potential company to invest. Going to James, sir. So he heads the development finance and investment, right? And the question to you would be, with your focus on mobilizing private capital with low-end, middle-income countries, including Nepal, what sectors within Nepal do you see holding potential for innovation and entrepreneurship that attract more impact investment into Nepal's startup ecosystem? Thank you.
Thanks, and it's great to be here with so many distinguished guests and the Honourable Minister, so very appreciative of the opportunity to speak to you all today. So DAI is a global consultancy and we've got a corporate presence in Nepal. We have a donor arm that conducts aid work and we also have a commercial arm that's aimed at mobilising development capital for results. And on the commercial side, we have a asset management practice with DI Microinvest, and we have a investment bank with DI Magister. DI Magister recently advised on the transaction that resulted in Fuse Machines being the first Nepali company to shortly be listed on the Nasdaq Stock Exchange. For those who don't know Fuse Machines, they're a global provider of enterprise AI products. So, the AI sector, IT, power of digital transformation were all areas that we're really excited about and areas that we've been paying close attention to. And we do see a vibrant ecosystem, and I noted with delight in the Honourable Chair's remarks about the talent in his presentation. I couldn't agree more. You know, those young national demographics is really attractive with the sector there and that really strong educated workforce. I think with every sector there are challenges. I was speaking with a HR IT founder the other day, and she was saying about the challenges of regulatory environment as opposed to the strategic engagement which she needs to devote resources towards in terms of being able to build the startup further. Whilst linking youth and education a second ago, I do think it's important to say entrepreneurship isn't just for the young dynamos coming out of college. It takes many different forms. You know, you don't have to be innovating at the level of Fuse Machines and Uber or Twitter. Innovation can be really small adjustments to a sector that creates genuine competitive advantage. I think the challenge with innovation is to make sure that you have strong underlying business fundamentals. And I noted down in bright red letters when Tenzin said about strong business fundamentals. I couldn't agree more. For startups, you're already against the curve versus more established businesses. So you need to have those really strong business fundamentals in order to make sure that you're getting across to investors what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. Speaking of small adjustments, I work on a climate finance accelerator project in Pakistan, and we work with a trucking company. Now, on the face of it, trucking doesn't seem to have much to do with climate finance. However, we worked with a company who created an app to match trucking loads to empty containers. So that reduces dead loading, which is an estimated 20% of all trucking loads. And that's where the load is empty, and it's a serious problem. By reducing that dead loading, you're able to reduce the opportunity and resource costs, and also have a significant climate impact by reducing those carbon emissions that are created as a result of it. Obviously, you know, there's loads of opportunity in Nepal, hydro, tourism, particularly eco and sustainable. An area I'd like to focus on quickly is agriculture. It's not seen as traditionally as exciting or as potentially viable as other areas for entrepreneurship. However, agriculture in Nepal, 33% of the GDP is created through it, major source of food, income, employment for the economy. And if you're engaging in such a large market, it's easier to get to scale if you've got a viable product that's creating innovation in the marketplace. So you've got more potential growth. In terms of opportunities that we've seen in the Nepali marketplace, we've seen really interesting work that's been done with AI drone systems in Pakistan that have been targeting specific weeds, reducing waste. We've also seen tech-infused aggregation facilities produce great success across East Africa, and they've been able to really reduce post-harvest losses, which are a serious detriment to smallholder farmers. So I think in closing, I would say you can absolutely try and be the next unicorn, and you can absolutely reach for the stars. And Nepal has a fantastic entrepreneurial spirit. However, don't neglect the real opportunities that are there in more established industries. Thanks.
Thank you, James, for your inputs. And I'd like to jump into Professor for another question, because we do have a couple of questions that has come from the audience, and it's directed mainly to the government. I should mention that. And but to Professor, with your background in managing multi-billion-dollar portfolios for international banks and hedge funds, what strategies and financial instruments could be introduced to attract more investment into Nepal's startup ecosystem? And you've already seen what's happening globally, and you know, being a Nepali, what is right the reality of Nepal. So you can just shed light on that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Junaji. First of all, thank you for the invite, and it's great to be here as a practitioner from the diaspora. This is a very interesting question, right? I was trained as a financial engineer, and I've been in this exotic investment space, covering multiple type of deals for over a decade now. So I think the crux of your question is how do we build a capital highway that connects Nepal with regional and global markets? When I think of an investment as an investor, and I'm pretty sure all of you would agree, there's really two things we look at. What's the objective of our investment? Is it impact ESG? Is it my, what's this conduit? Is it my hypergrowth vehicle? What is it, right? And then what's the risk to my objective? As an investment banker on the other side of the table, when I'm trying to convince an investor to kind of invest in something or fundraise, what I'm really trying to do is, one, try to make sure how can I cater to a variety of investment objectives, and two, how do I make sure I minimize the risk to the objective without exuberant cost to my client, right? So that's really what we are looking at. Now, taking that perspective and bringing it to Nepal and looking at Nepal, I want to talk about risk to the objective, because I think end of the day investment decision really is risk pricing, and that's where it kind of boils down to. In my opinion, there are really two sides to it. One, the host demanding it is their capacity, right? So that is, I think, a pretty important question that we always noodle upon. So capacity in terms of country, host institution, financial ecosystem, infrastructure, and everything that kind of is around it. And the second piece is the supply side, right? So as me as an investor supplying capital, do I have instruments to go in this market with, instrument that aligns with my risk objective and, investment objectives and risk appetite. So I think that is where the whole ball game is, building this highway connecting Nepal to a global market. Now, when we talk about host demanding capital, we're talking about all of this infrastructure layer and what needs to be done. So, things like Nepal getting a sovereign rating, Nepali financial services industry being more mature, all the work that our esteemed panelists here have been doing in the VCP space. We talked about accelerators, incubators to kind of skill up or upskill the startups that are in fact demanding these funds. I think all of this is very instrumental, right? So that kind of solves the demand problem in terms of capacity. And in terms of supply side, right, so we talked about instrumentation. I think the answer is instrumentation. How do we cater to specific risk appetite? And there can be n number of solutions to this, but I think I want to focus on one thing that is pretty particular in terms of capital structure. As an investment banker, anybody in the room here, any other investment banker, I think you would agree that it's very hard to raise equity financing. It's either very expensive or it's very hard. It's easier to raise other type of mixed financing between debt and equity, and then it gets easier as you go into debt spectrum. So maybe I think we should think about financial engineering. We should think about risk engineering. We should think about, as we get more mature, can we bring these instruments to light where an investor can look at a deal, we can shred a deal and cater to 10 different investors. People who want to take equity risk can take that. People who want to take a different type of debt risk can take that. I'll give you one example, and this happens every day. If a fintech comes to me on my desk and says, hey, can you give me $100 million? I want to scale. I lend to, say, motorcycle buyers. This is $100 million in equity, and then that's what I want to use to go and lend. I don't know how I feel about that. But if that same fintech comes to me and says that, hey, can you give me $70 on every $100 I lend? I will pledge this $100 as a collateral on you. I have another bank that takes mezzanine for, I don't know, like $20 additional, and $10 is my equity risk. You get paid first, and then we can add all the bells and whistles that you want to make this warehouse. Now suddenly the deal is much more lucrative for me. It aligns with my risk appetite and investment objective. So I think we should be thinking about things like this to bring in more fund. And I think I'll take a pause there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. And I would like to request for a round of applause for the panelists for keeping up with the time and not going overboard with the time. A round of applause to all the panelists, please. Thank you so much. I do have a lot of questions from the audience, and as I'm looking at it, I'm passing it to the concerned person also, and if you can just have a look at the questions, that'll be really great. And I'd like to incorporate the ones that are already there, which aligns with my questions also. So I'll go back to Lokman sir, and yes, the best practices. Kindly, if you can share some best practices that Nepal could learn from Bangladesh experience and to enhance our investment climate. Please, sir.
Thank you very much. You are very rightly raised the question. That's a best practices is very important, but we Bangladesh is trying our level best to do that, because right now we have Bangladesh. We have a 170 million people. It's a small country size. Among this limitation, the government policy updated to investment friendly and business eco-friendly system, according to the relation with the nationally and internationally. We try our level base. Right now, Bangladesh is one of the resilience country. We follow the compare with the Vietnam, Indonesia, India, and many countries also. As for example, we can say if any investor, foreigner, Bangladeshi, they do business, start their business. If he start their business in Vietnam, he need maximum 35 days to getting all sort of support or clearance also. In Indonesia, they need near about 48 days. In India, 60 days plus. And by this time, in Bangladesh government, we take a decision. Most of the services we provided is OSS, on-stop services, on-stop portal. And we integrated 38 division and ministry with including 150 services. By this time, most of the services we provide in on-stop services. And from BIDA, as the apex body, we are the liaison from government to private investor. So we provided 20 services. Most of the services we provide within 24 hours, maximum 16 days. So we have a plan. We hope in next 2 or 3 months we provided most of the services in 35 days. That will be very business-friendly, investment-friendly, eco-friendly system. Because we not only that, we make also a very good system that is called BICI, Business Climate Improvement Plan. Every day we reform ourselves 101 policy, but out of this 101, we updated 44. That is, out of 44, we have a 7 pillar. That is, business exist and business entry and exit, regulation updated, and they are regulated, updated, and everything is policies also, resolution, conflict, resolution, resolve the conflict, or resolution also. We provide aftercare service. If anybody start there from, as a FDI, if they start their business, from their business entity to exist, every point, BIDA is always after-caring service from our side. Thank you.
Thank you, Lokman sir, for the insightful insights on what Bangladesh entrepreneurial system is doing. Going to Umesh sir, we do have a question from the audience also regarding the startup loan, and my question also to you was about policy reform and interventions that the government is looking at to promote startup. But there are very few questions that I would like to consider here. You can maybe, summarize it in your answer. One question is from, just a sec. Yeah, there's a list of questions, but I'm not sure from where it is from. A list of questions about startup loan, like what is the criteria of selection of starting, and if you can just clarify on how will you be selecting the startups at the end. is an overall, like the definition of startup is also there, which I would like to say that if you look at the website of IETI, there is always a Karyavidhi, the directives there, where it has not defined the startup, but it has defined the criteria of who's going to get the loan. So you can have a look at it, it's in the website of IETI. But about the selection criteria of the startups in for the loan. And another question that has led to, like, it's come from Rahul from University of Oxford, management consultant, and this is to you also, Mishji. So here, so we are also asking the same question to the government, that what took government of Nepal 18 years to have a business incubation center approval in Nepal. So, I always ask the question to the government. So, maybe you can summarize it and have your say in this, sir.
Thank you for the question. So, yeah, definitely government is trying our best to do it. 10 years back, there was different scenario. Like if you'll go back 5 years back, there was different scenario. 2 years back, from last 2 years, we are drafting the startup policy, and yesterday it got approved. So this is good news. So I want to connect. You know the dynamics in the country. You know how we are working. But still there is progress, so we should be happy about this. There is, it's progressive, so things are progressing well. As I said earlier, Audhogik Vyavasay Ain, Industrial Enterprise Act was revised, and startup policy has been included in that. Even Business Incubation Center is included in that. 4 years back, government had planned a budget to have business incubation center in all the local levels, but it didn't happen because there was no policy. It was not included in the Industrial Act. So now we have that foundations have been laid out. So things are progressing, and it needs to be revised as we progress. There's also a saying that change management is a very big thing. We need to adjust with that. So as we progress, maybe after a few years, we need to again review and revise the Industrial Enterprise Act to adjust with the time, with the changes. So I am very positive about this. Regarding the startup loan guideline, we have already put the Karyavidhi on the website. You can have a look into it. But I want to briefly share it. So there are 4 criteria. One is it's the government of Nepal, Ministry of Industry, Commerce and Supplies budget. So whichever enterprises which is registered under Department of Industry or any provincial level government entity or either local level entities as उद्योग मा दर्ता भएको enterprises-हरुलाई ग्राह्यता दिएको छ. If you are registered in a company registered only, then you will not be considered. Ministry of Industry, Commerce and Supplies had 2 weeks back, they have published a press release in the website, and they had clearly set out the additional criteria, including the Karyavidhi. So that clarifies all those things, and we are strictly following on that. Again, definition of startup is new for us. So we are consulting with experts in the startup, private sector, even association like FNCCI, CNI, NYEF, CNIYEF, all the consortium partners we are consulting, we are taking their suggestions, and we are working together as a stakeholder. So from the IDI side, I want to ensure that as we move forward, it's all the transparent process, and we are in consultation with all the private partners, all the associations, and we are moving forward. I also want to mention about the Startup Nation 2030. So this is initiative taken by government, supported by all the agencies, and particularly with the FNCCI is supporting this. So, and the goal is to transform Nepal into most startup friendly nation in South Asia by year 2030. And we are looking forward to create or support 10,000 startups which can give more than 100,000 green jobs, which is a very big thing for the country like Nepal. So we are working on that side, and definitely as foundation has been created, we need to review it and revise as we progress. So I think I was able to answer this. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sir, for your strong determination to take this forward and at least take it from the startup drive that you have from the government side. I think that's very commendable that you're driving it from the government, and not just from the government. You're looking at other partners and consulting with other private sector, education, institutions, and taking it forward, not just like a one-man show, but you're doing it collectively, and I hope you all the best for that. We do have a lot of questions for the Honorable Minister, and I've already shared them with you. I'm not sure how she will be summarizing it, all the questions that she has. But I'll go back to my panel first, and going to Siddhant Sir about, given your leadership role in climate-focused initiatives and your partnership in global climate adaptation programs, what opportunities exist for startup to contribute to climate resilience and sustainable development? Like, can you share some success stories that you have seen?
Before I answer that question, I just want to go back to what James talked about. Fuse Machines is also one of our invested companies, which I'm very proud of, and that is the company that is training AI personnel for international work, and they're based in Nepal and New York. Well, going back to the question that was asked from me, one of the beauty of what I do is that it's never boring, and each company that we assess and we invest in is making an impact. I'll give you an example of a company that deals with solar. It created an innovative product called, we call it the RESCO model, Renewable Energy Solar Company, which is like a mini utility company. Climate change is happening. Climate change is changing the lives of rural Nepal tremendously. What used to be vibrant agricultural land is turning into barren, drought-filled barren land, and people are moving out of their villages, going abroad to make ends meet. So this company, what it did is that it set up a solar installation in that village, which powered solar pumps, which in turn brought water from the river to the village, which irrigated the land. Not only did it irrigate the land, it also provided electricity for the villagers and also tap water in every household. Now the irrigated land started, the villagers got together and started to grow red chili, Ratu Kursani, and now they export it to the villages, to Kathmandu from there. 150 kilometers is where this village is located. So that was a small gesture, a small investment, but it changed the livelihoods of almost 200 farmers, villages. Another investment that we made, now I call this, well, I don't call it, it's a new term. It's called transformational enterprise. It's adaptation resilience financing. It is about investing, taking in mind what's happening with climate change. Another investment that we made in Sarlahi, which produces biopellets in an industrial level. It's a startup, okay? What it does is its biopellets are called green coal. Now green coal is made out of perennial waste from the forest and sawdust waste. It's compacted and it is used for and can be used for emplacement of coal that we import, which is extremely detrimental to the environment. Now, we can't completely displace coal, but if we can have 30% of this bio pellet mixed with coal, then it has the effect of reducing 40% sulfur emission and decreasing greenhouse gas emission. Okay? So these are the things that our startup companies are doing. And not only that, we are lobbying the government to make changes so that, these cement factories, the brick kilns, these tea plantations should pivot to using pellets as a mixture to coal so that our environment can be cleaner. So these are just some of the examples.
Excellent, Siddhant. So I think these are the role models that we should glorify in a way that everybody sees it and can copy also. That's, I think there's no harm in copying is how I see it. If it has to be sustainable and viable also and not be copycats all the time. But I'll go back to Tenzin sir about, given your involvement in renewable energy, technology, agriculture and other sectors, do you see the role of innovation and technology adoption in driving the growth of startups in Nepal? Like what opportunities exist for startups in these sectors? And if you can touch a little bit on, if it's actually it's not directed to, it is directed to actually, okay, to the minister, okay. So maybe on this, please.
Thank you. So in terms of opportunities in a couple of the sectors that you just laid out, look, I think my general opinion is in Nepal there are almost too many opportunities, I think it's fair to say, just about all the major sectors from energy to agriculture to healthcare. It's mostly an open playing field, right? I cannot think of many players who vastly dominate any major kind of sector. So if you speak of innovation and technology, the opportunities are plentiful, and I think that's amazing because with many young people here and many who might be watching online, this is an excellent opportunity to come up with new ideas of innovation and startup because, as I said, in the sectors of be it energy, agriculture, education, so on and so forth, just about any major sector, the opportunities are very, very vast. And so I think the opportunity to disrupt and then eventually to scale up is huge. But having said that, I must also warn that, and this is not Nepal-centric, in the kind of broader world of startups, there's the glorified kind of startup world and there's the reality of the startup world, which is 80–90% of startups fail around the world, right? And so even we have senior level government officials and minister level here. This is something we need to understand that, when you invest in startups, when you invest in incubation centers, the reality is that vast majority are actually going to fail. They are not going to be commercially viable, but I think that's part of the ecosystem building, right? And in many ways, I couldn't think of a better opportunity to say this because the Honorable Education Minister is here, perhaps one of the most progressive ministers we've had in recent Nepalese political history. A lot of the things I think we're talking about today, startup, ecosystem, opportunities, innovation, my fundamental belief, even as a finance person and an investor, my kind of fundamental belief is it kind of eventually boils down to a good education system. If you look at international economies around the world, let's say successful economies, be it the largest ones like the United States, other successful Scandinavian countries, Singapore, more recently everyone is talking about the Indian growth story, right? And none of these countries, actually all of these countries have fundamentally very strong educational system. You go to countries like Singapore, for example, they have top-notch, they rank amongst the world top 1, 2 consecutively in science and mathematics and things. No wonder a country that is physically a very small country that does not have as many natural resources like our beautiful country here in Nepal, yet they produce startups time and again, billion-dollar startups, yet they attract the largest investment funds in the world. And why is that? Is that because Nepalese are not capable? Is that because we don't have opportunities? No. I think fundamentally, if you were to boil it down, I think it boils down to education, right? Because our future entrepreneurs, the startup founders that we're talking about today, they come from our education system, right? Fundamentally, right? So India didn't. I'm biased towards India. I grew up in India as a kid, but India didn't become India because of the last 5-10 years. India became India because of post-colonial era, post 40s and 50s. They started investing in institutions that they knew will pay dividends many, many decades down the line, right? So you speak of the Indian IITs, right? We all follow the Indian IITs now. Microsoft, Google, everyone wants to hire from IITs. Why is that? The IITs were started 50, 60 years ago. And in recent history, in the early 2000s, when post-Indian kind of economic liberalization, when the timing is just right, when the Indian economy is opening up, the multinational corporations, the Microsoft, the Facebook, the Googles are coming in, and the time is just right because India has a young population just like Nepal. Not only that, they have these very strong educational institutions like the IITs. And the question is, now, I think Nepal's time is coming in the coming years, but are we ready? If Microsoft wants to build a center here, are our educational system strong enough, vibrant enough? Are we producing the kind of talent? I don't think the answer is completely no, but I think the answer is more nuanced in the sense there's an opportunity, a lot of work to be done there. And if done right, and I'm an optimist for one, like I said, we have very progressive government, progressive ministers, right? And I'm putting my pitch here. Because in the investment world we can speak of businesses need this, businesses need that, financing is required, but that's the usual kind of jargon you'll hear in any kind of investment platform. But like I said, I think fundamentally, I think many of you might agree, I think it boils down to a good education system, and I'm personally optimistic, but just throwing in my kind of little pitch here while the minister is here. Thank you.
Thank you, Tenzing sir, for your inputs and rightly pointing it out that failure is inevitable in terms of when we are doing business, and it's kind of a taboo that nobody talks about failure, and where it is a greater need for us to accept the failure and move on too. Because we hear that try and you will succeed, but that's just meant for people who practice a lot, preach a lot and don't practice it as much. So our society is kind of not very positive towards failure, and I think that is where the education also comes in place, because they learn it from, if you're coming in first in class, then that's fine, and if your aim is to be a doctor and an engineer is even better, but nobody talks about failures. And what I've heard is the teachers that go to the public schools especially are the ones who come last in the class. So, these are the things that you said. And then, I'd again like to thank you for pointing out the importance of, the safety nets for startups. Like from the FNCCI also, we are always talking about, what is the safety net for the employers. Whereas all the policies are very pro-employees and for their benefit. But so if the business fails, then what is the safety net for us? Where do we go when where we can't pay the loan, or when we get bankrupted, or when there is failure of any line? So that's a very good point that you raised, Tenzing sir. And but we do have someone who can talk about climate financing, and I'd like to go back to James about, as somebody deeply involved in climate financing, how Nepal can leverage its potential in renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, and other climate resilient sectors to attract investment and support the growth of startups. Here I would like to mention, if you can let us know about initiatives or partnerships that you believe are essential for green entrepreneurial and innovation in Nepal.
Thanks, and I think just to echo that point on failure, I think I've learned so much more from failure in my life than from successes, and you can really grow and develop from that, so I think that's a very important point to take forward. I found myself agreeing with Tenzing again. There are too many opportunities in Nepal, but just to go through a few of them quickly, I think one going back to agriculture, one is on productivity, and I think if you look at rice production in Nepal, generally it's around 3 tons per hectare, and India, China, Bangladesh, all higher than that, and that's across various crops. It's not just limited to rice. So this is a productivity challenge, but this is also an opportunity. And, you know, there's lots of things that we can do to boost productivity in agriculture. We mentioned drone spraying earlier, information systems and pricing, another great one. Seed technology production, again, that can increase ag production by up to 20%. And, you know, yes, there are higher initial costs, but as entrepreneurs, the challenge there is making the case to farmers and to say, you know, you can do things like innovative solutions such as discounting upfront costs in exchange for a percentage of future yields. So there's ways around that. Looking further forward to the future, I think an area there's really great potential in Nepal is in terms of the forest cover, and particularly the carbon market potential. 45% of Nepal covered by forest, and that's a massive, massive resource to be utilised. And increasingly investors in the international market are looking at nature-based solutions and biodiversity as income streams. This is driven by a few factors: shareholder demands, corporate strategy, but also seeing an increased opportunity there. It's pleased to see the World Bank here this week, and the Forest Carbon Partnership Facility that they've signed with Nepal is a great first step in this journey. I think looking further forward to the future, obviously there's challenges with verification, but the work we've done in Pakistan, we've worked with startups who are project developers working in partnership with community forestry. So there are opportunities here in carbon markets in terms of being able to engage and to help grow and also protect crucial biodiversity. I think looking again further forward in terms of upcoming potential, and electric vehicles is one that currently there are challenges with the infrastructure. However, there's partners such as Urja Nepal, USAID's project, the FCDO's Nepal Renewable Energy Project, the government's work as well. They are pushing ahead with charging stations. And I think, you know, if you were setting up now as an EV bike company looking to do some sort of delivery service, you could do that in Kathmandu, and then in a few years' time you could look to scale that around the country. So again, that's something, you know, if you get in now, you're starting to get ahead of the curve in terms of that upcoming revolution. Speaking, as June said, about partnerships, I think, you know, Nepal has a wonderful donor community that's engaged here, and there's a real firm commitment there on the renewable energy side. Mentioned USAID and the World Bank, and to also touch on the FCDO, the Nepal Renewable Energy Project I mentioned, that has a Sustainable Energy Challenge Fund, which is utilising a viability gap model. What that means is it makes marginally feasible projects bankable in the future, and that's developed a 1:6 ratio in terms of the private finance that's mobilised. And that's really supported a lot of project developers at a very early stage be able to move beyond that and really grow their enterprises. Another DI project in Koshi province, funded by the SDC, is called Udaya, which I'm reliably told means we rise in Nepali. And so that's focused on SME finance and providing support to entrepreneurs grow their businesses. I think one thing on support to early stage enterprises is that it's not just financial support. Non-financial support is really important, and being able to engage with SMEs at an early stage. First off, how do you build your financial model? How do you have, again, strong fundamentals? You know, there's great climate-focused funds like Business Auction with SID, but then there's other investors who may not understand the climate value addition that is given. So you need to have those strong fundamentals in place in order to be able to gradually go to investors with confidence. And then it's how do you pitch to those investors? How do you make the case? So all of those things, that's not financial support. That's just dedicated TA and work with SMEs to really build them up so that they can become and grow as ventures. I think the last thing I'd say in closing, there are a wealth of opportunities, again going back to what we said, for Nepal to leverage its potential. The challenge for entrepreneurs and startups is finding the right direction and the right solution for yourself, finding what fits with your risk appetite and needs, and hopefully inspires positive change going forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, James, for pointing out about the importance of non-financial supports, because we always talk about the business support system, which is kind of lacking here. And I'm just not talking about Kathmandu, because Kathmandu is not Nepal. You know, we have to talk all over Nepal, and if we are looking at all over Nepal, then the ecosystem needs to be as supportive as it is in Nepal, as it is, you know, not just opening to Nepalese entrepreneurs and not just tech entrepreneurs, but of course the startups which are there in the agriculture, in all the different sectors that are therein. Moving on, I'd like to ask Pravesh sir about, you know, given your involvement in advising wealth funds and family offices on investment in fintech and Web 3.0. How do you see the role of emerging technologies in shaping Nepal's financial landscape and supporting entrepreneurship? Are there, like, what opportunities exist for Nepalese startup to leverage these technologies? If you can contextualize anything that you've seen that we can bring in.
Sure. So how big of an opportunity exists for Nepalese startup because of these emerging technologies, right? I think there is a ton of competition, but in terms of opportunity, if I had to give one word answer, huge, right? There is a huge opportunity. And I believe the biggest driver is going to be human capital in this sector. We've already seen early signs of this with the recent IT sector boom that we are experiencing. And I think the flywheel that Abhushanji showed us earlier, I think that is, that boom, the human capital is going to is that. Now why, right? A simple answer to the why is because I think the whole sector is very new. So the playing field is not as much distorted. So I remember one of the very first commercial papers around Web 3.0 that Horizon at MIT published was published back in not more than 3 years back. So what I'm trying to say here is it's very new. The information is very accessible, and the world is moving in that direction, and we know it. So if you ask me, is it a safe investment bet? I would say yes, with capital letters, right? So you talk about Web 3.0. I think I might want to extend that to Gen AI, LLMs, and now like semiconductor technologies. I think right here we have an opportunity of a lifetime to put ourselves on the map, to put ourselves on the table. But again, globally, there is pretty strong competition. But we need to have armies of human resources trained in, for example, let's Web 3.0. When I say trained, it has to be end-to-end. Everything, business concepts, models, protocols, primitives, layer 1, layer 2, you name it, we have to kind of go all in. Ready to tackle real-world problem globally and at home. So, and it's not the first time, right? We've seen other economies pivot into knowledge worker economy. We have seen that with Philippines. We have seen that what India has done with IT education. We've seen what some of the countries from the Soviet bloc have done with other technologies. So I think, there are a ton of case studies that we could kind of take inspiration from and follow. The other point is upskilling of human resource will also make local market vibrant. So education sector development, however it comes, I think we really need that toolkitting or updating of our human capital, and that is going to give us the baseline infrastructure we need to build on top of it. Now, how do we build on top of it? I'll just maybe take like one last minute and speak that. Again, I'll take TCS, India, Infosys as our case studies. We really need to tap into our diaspora. I come here from representing diaspora today. We really need to tap into our diaspora. Today, Nepali diaspora is in decision-making capacities around the world in big corporates, right? In major companies who, by their desire to be cost-effective, are looking for low-cost offshoring locations, are looking for low-cost R&D partners. And when we are having these discussions, if we are tapping into our diaspora, it gives us voice into boardrooms, into senior management layers. And I think that is the opportunity. Now think about as emerging technology becomes a BAU operational strategy for big corporates, they will come to economies where we have armies of these trained people. So human capital is the answer, the route is diaspora, and I think there is going to be a time where we will reap our dividend. I'll end with one example. I can remember a ton of success stories here, but I'll maybe pitch one, which is a company called Genesis, and it is Siddhant Sir's portfolio. They actually are my quant support team. So think about it, a quant support team for my trading desk that works out of Nepal. So it's a bunch of Nepali engineers working with American traders and portfolio managers, building solutions to manage multi-billion-dollar in private credit that is shuffled through US markets every year. And the technologies that you mentioned, we are on the cutting edge of that, and it is like Nepali engineers doing it. Anything that is cutting edge, anything experimental, we try that. Anything that gives us alpha, we try it. We use that to run real money. And all of that is being supported by Nepali engineers working from comfort of Nepal. And that is beautiful, and I think we should do more of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. And even though I was not pointing out that question, one of the questions from the audience was about tapping the non-residential Nepali from outside. And I hope you've got the answer, but I don't know the name here, so the name was not there. I've got two questions here, but one was directed to me, so maybe you can come and talk directly to me about that. And there's one query from Navita Shrikant, International Development Expert India, about can government of Nepal consider allowing CSR support to follow up startups, whereby every leading corporate house handhold a startup for 3 years in this sector. So this could be one of the points that can be taken forward by the government in the next round of talks. And with this, I would like to thank my panelists from deepest of my heart for keeping up with the time and sharing your valuable inputs to us, all of us here. And I hope the takeaways from the panel could give us a way forward for us to take and make this ecosystem a better form, because we are building on it and we have to take each pillar at the time for the ecosystem to develop. And thank you so much, and a round of applause to the audience and to the panelists once again. And I would like to give my mic to okay. So I would like to request the Honorable Minister for Education to give your closing remarks. Maybe you could use the podium there or wherever you'd feel comfortable. Yeah, sure, please.
Many thanks, Chuna. Warm good afternoon to everyone, to the distinguished guests who've come here to Nepal, participating in the Investment Summit. Thank you very much. And I really appreciate you taking time to visit our wonderful country. Hope you get some time off the Investment Summit as well to visit around. Today we had really interesting conversation. I'd had a really interesting perspective. But having been in the diaspora community, having been in the tech sector, having been an entrepreneur, and now in this role, one of the things I can definitely say is, as government, as representing government, one of the things that I'm working very hard, and we're all working very hard, and you're part of that, is to build the enabling environment, to build the ecosystem, to allow a student, while they are getting educated, to also learn about problem-solving skills, because ultimately that's what entrepreneurship is about. It's about problem-solving, it's about figuring out then how do you monetize it, how do you market it, these skill sets. We're really focusing on redefining education away from certificates to skills, and then there are certificates that also provide skills. So one of the aspirations I have for upcoming budget is, imagine we have an army of 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 Google certified, AWS certified, that kind of human resources that then can be pitched by companies like Fuse Machines or Leapfrogs or other companies to then get their products and services as their marketing. So I completely hear you and I understand that human resources are one of the key areas, but I could not agree more, and I cannot overemphasize the role diaspora is going to play. Similar to what Pravesh mentioned, the Nepali diaspora at this point are in major decision-making roles, and we are coming up with a strategy to connect them back to Nepal. For example, I had a Zoom meeting with North American academics to see how we can create a more collaborative research exchange programs, or even faculty taking a sabbatical and coming to Nepal to take a 6 months semester or a year-long courses here. For the guests and for the investors, I would like to reiterate few of the things that we've heard here. There is definitely a huge gap, which means there's a huge opportunity in the, especially when it comes to the seed and angel investment route, and that is probably the area where you'll probably have the largest return. For the domestic investors as well, while it's very tempting to go after companies and prompt engineering with with 100x returns. I think for Nepal, we also need to think about companies that solve local problems that might not have 100x or 1000x returns, but that might have like 5x returns that solves local problem. I think once we start with solving local problems, we'll also be able to generate more wealth. And then talking about startups, I think if we start prioritizing everything, then nothing gets prioritized. Digital products and services are definitely one of the areas where it's weightless, it's borderless products and services that we can export. This is an area government is very serious in expanding and supporting. The fantastic news is the export number that was put out earlier. That export happened not because of any focus support, that happened organically. Now imagine the potentials if we were to double down, or if we were to start focusing on, if government were to produce the human resources with different kind of certification that is recognized all around the world. Imagine the cybersecurity space. Nepal is pretty good in that. We go to various competition and our kids win that competition, right? So we are identifying this very niche, but in digital space, what can we do? How can we really quickly produce human resources that are, whose skills are then sellable? And with what that means is for all the investors, if you're thinking about investing, that is probably one of the areas that will really support. I've also gotten questions from students in biotech. We can have a separate conversations about that. And I completely agree with Juna. Nepal does not just means Kathmandu. There are a lot of interesting stuff happening, and we cannot underestimate the value of the people, the returning migrants, especially those who've come from places like Israel that have learned very productive agricultural techniques, which I believe that you've also invested in, right? So there are very interesting opportunities. I am all open to listening to the areas that needs to be supported that you are seeing in your pipeline. But I believe we are at a very interesting point as a country where we are really open for business. And all the questions and all the ideas that you have, we're ready to listen. We're ready to listen, we're ready to make a checklist, we're ready to prioritize what needs to be prioritized, and really ease up the regulatory framework to enable businesses to grow, to enable the alternative investment ecosystem to also pick up. And really, for a lot of entrepreneurs, it would be wonderful to have a billion-dollar company right out of Nepal, but equally interesting would be to have a $10 million company out of Nepal. And that, what I believe, Juna, you were getting at, is in terms of making things more equitable all across Nepal. So, so friends who've come for the investment summit, I would really like to say it loud and clear, Nepal is really open for business. Let us know where we can help you. Let us know where we can help you. Let us know where we can facilitate. Let us know what hurdles that you're facing. And let's have a very collaborative space. And also I'd like to point out what was pointed out earlier is we have yet to capture, or we have yet to delve into the climate financing space altogether. So every problem that you're hearing is an area for you to solve, for you to invest, for you to identify an entrepreneur who is working in that. So again, Nepal is open for business. I hope the matchmaking happens in these summits. And welcome again. Enjoy your stay. Thank you.
Hello? All right. With your permission, of course, from the chair and the moderator, I think we are running a little late. We really didn't want this to stop, and it's been quite a delight on this side, and I'm sure it's the same on that side as well, to be a part of this session, oozing with so much optimism and promises, and trust us, they have been there proven it multiple times and are so positively looking forward to. And this really carried the truest essence of startups and, you know, the air of doing business that we were so focused on. Thank you, distinguished dignitaries. Thank you indeed from our deepest part of the heart for such candid and enriching and a very promising session that you just delivered. And we were discussing one of the most fundamental of everything else that we're here for. And I completely lit up when one of our the panelists said Nepal's time is coming. And all right, all the good wishes to all of us. I think already we've found a connect. We've laid a sort of a commitment and a ground that we so much yearn to as we started our journey to this hub here in the heart of Nepal. And said that, the session certainly has come to a conclude, but a small and important formality remains. Owing to the constraints of mobility up here, may I have the privilege of inviting you all kindly to grace us down down the stage, as I seek to invite the IBN CEO, Mr. Sushil Bhatta, to extend our bit of gratitude for the invaluable time and your expertise, knowledge, and experience that you bring to the forum. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for this very, very distinguished panel. First and foremost, from the IBN family and all of us, we extend deep felt appreciation and pride as well to the leadership and the sense of assurances and confidence that the Honorable Minister brings to the forum. This is extending our deep-felt gratitude and appreciation for her incredible leadership and the promise she brings to young Nepal. Honorable Sumana Shrestha, Minister for Education, Science and Technology, the session chair. And now I turn to the session chair herself, the Honorable Minister, to extend our appreciation on behalf of the government to the esteemed panelists. Could you kindly take center stage, Honorable Minister? Ladies and gentlemen, let us extend our gratitude first to the presenter, Mr. Abhushan Kansakar from NYEF. We cannot be more thankful to the great value you brought to creating that ambience and that tone for the entire deliberations that followed. Thank you so much, Mr. Kansakar. To the session moderator, Ms. Juna Mathima, Chairperson of Start and Innovation Forum, FNCCI. We couldn't have done this without your great efficiency and skill and the rich knowledge and experience that you bring to the forum. Thank you so, so much. And with much pride and honor and gratitude, we are here extending our appreciation to our distinguished panelists. First and foremost to Mr. Lokman Hussain Mia, the Executive Chairman, Senior Secretary, Bangladesh Investment Development Authority. Your presence here was invaluable, sir, and of course the inputs gave us so many takeaways and food to ponder on. To Mr. Umesh Gupta, ED, Industrial Enterprise Development Institute, thank you so much for adding that extra dimension to the talks here. We look forward to more support and cordiality from your side. And we were so proud and in fact very honored to have Mr. Siddhanta Pandey, CEO, Business Oxygen, with the expertise, experience, commitment that he brings along. Many thank you, Mr. Pandey, for the great value that you added to the forum. To Mr. Tenzin Sonam Gonsar, CEO, Team Ventures. How happy you make us with those words of optimism, and the experiences that you shared were worthy for contemplation and action as well. Thank you so much. Mr. James Norton, Head Development Finance and Investment, DAI UK. Thank you so much for the invaluable knowledge, experience, and the extra perspective that you added to the forum. Thank you so much, sir. Dr. Pravesh Rijal, Head of Quantitative Strategies, Cross River Bank. Thank you so much for the invaluable perspectives, insight, and thoughts that you brought along. And as we do this, may I invite back all the panelists to kindly join in our Honorable Minister for a quick photo opportunity, please. May I invite all our, the presentator? Yes, may I invite all our panelists to kindly join in the Honorable Minister for a quick photo opportunity. That was Mr. Luqman Hussain Mia presenting a token from Bangladesh and from his side. Thank you so much for that great gesture. Ladies and gentlemen, as I turn to you, thank you so much for being so attentive, so supportive, which is a gesture that only adds impetus to all our enthusiasm and the spirits that we need to further things after we close down all the engagements of the summit. Thank you indeed, and especially to all the questions that came by that we consider as, with lot of optimism and positivity. So this is leading now to a full hall panel on leveraging PPP. So we'll have to reshuffle the entire thing as we lift off this cordon therein. So we request you all to kindly take your belongings along with you, and it's in about 15 to 20 minutes. We request all of you to be seated back for the session on leveraging PPP, which will be graced by our Honorable Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Rabi Lamichhane, and that will culminate into the closing ceremony of the summit. Thank you so much. See you on the other side.